In this episode, we tell the money story of a couple that decided that the best strategy to win the rat race was to walk away. Let's get started.
Let's get some money.
From New Money, New Problems, it's the New Money, New Problems podcast, a show for successful professionals searching for the tools they need to navigate financial opportunities and obstacles they've never seen. Negotiating compensation, purchasing your first investment property, helping your family with money, the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. New money brings new problems that require new solutions. Join us as we work through them together. I'm Brenton Harrison, and this is the New Money, New Problems podcast.
Hello and welcome to another week on the New Money, New Problems podcast. I cannot overstate how excited I am to share this week's episode with you because we're going to be featuring the money story of the Saunders family, Kiersten and Julien Saunders of Rich and Regular. If you like this podcast, it's highly likely you're already familiar with them because they have done a phenomenal job of building a platform across platforms, be it their blog, their YouTube channel, their podcast, social media, even their book, Cashing Out, which we're going to do a giveaway for if you pay attention during the commercial break for this episode. And I can tell you, as someone who's interacted with them on a one-to-one level, they could not be more gracious with their time, not just in sharing financial literacy with the masses, but also in terms of their devotion to helping other content creators, specifically Black creators. And when you make financial content in this space, I can tell you for a fact that it can be very discouraging when you're trying to build a platform that's based on a certain level of morality, a certain level of decency. You're not trying to clickbait. You're not trying to say the most outrageous things just to get attention. And you feel like on other platforms that's being rewarded. Rich and Regular was one of the first places I saw and said, I can identify with the way they think. I can identify with their morals in terms of what they share with their audience. And I appreciate how authentically them they are with the content that they share. And I assure you, you're going to feel the same as you listen to this episode. We, of course, as is the case when I'm talking to people whose company I enjoy, went a little over what I had planned in terms of time. So if you're on our email list, you know that we have a private podcast feed where we release the full unedited episodes of our podcast. So if you want to hear the full conversation, join our email list at newmoneynewproblems.com/subscribe. But if you want to listen to the shorter, abbreviated, still excellent version after this quick whoosh sound effect that you're now all so familiar with, you'll hear the money story of Rich and Regular. I hope you enjoy it. Kiersten, Julian, welcome to the New Money, New Problems podcast.
Thank you.
What's up, man?
Feels like a family reunion.
Absolutely, absolutely. In the intro I shared, we talked a brief time ago. So good to see you again. I always, when I have people come on and there's some background to how we met, share a little bit, and I don't tell them what I'm going to share beforehand. I had a similar conversation with Nasima about this, but I met you all in the FinCon community. And the way I describe going to FinCon for the first time is like going to a new high school, and it's like senior year and everybody else has been there for 3 years but you. You kind of looking around and like, who's going to let me sit with them? And I think of Nasima, I think of you all as like the kids at the cool table who still let me sit there.
You know what? I get that feeling because I also remember our very first experience at FinCon, and it was such an important part of our relationship, but also our family and our entrepreneurial journey. So I know that was 2017 when we first showed up at one, and we'd spent a few years hearing about it and kind of watching, from a distance. And so that was our first time. And I completely can relate to that feeling. We had our version of people who clearly know their way around and we connected with them really quickly. And so we kind of try to take that same spirit and be as welcoming. But we're also, not to get rushed into our backgrounds, we both spent a lot of time in the hospitality industry. And so there's a natural part of that just kind of rolls into just about everything that we do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it means a lot to me that you all made a warm welcome, and I've seen you do it for others. You talked about your background. I do want to make sure that we highlight that. So many people who are listening are familiar with your brand, and you share a little bit in your podcast, your book about
you guys coming from different backgrounds, but tell a little more of the story about how you all grew before you grew together.
So we met at work in 2012. I had just moved back to Atlanta a couple years before that, but I grew up here. And we were both starting a new job on the same team, but doing different roles. And we met at like orientation. And that was kind of the start of our relationship, which was very like quick. It was a quick ramp up and then a quick decline, which we'll probably get to a little later. But before that, I was a normal 20-something single Black girl living her best life. I had graduated from college. I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and worked for a large retailer, and then moved to Atlanta to start in the hospitality industry. And everything about my life had been very fairy tale in my mind. Like, I just did not have the same kind of constraints or challenges that Julian had. I grew up in a 2-parent household in Atlanta, and so I was used to seeing Black people be successful. I knew from a very young age that I was going to college. I knew I was going to college to get a job, and so I was able to secure a job offer before I graduated. And it was very like linear in a path. And throughout that path, I had acquired a ton of credit card debt, and I was just kind of ignoring financial literacy as a whole because I just assumed that making money was easier than managing it. And so financial literacy was just in the back of my mind somewhere. It was not something that was at the forefront of any decision other than like how much money I was going to make. It just wasn't something I was thinking about, saving and investing, until I met Julian. And our relationship brought it to the very forefront by the time I was like 30. And that's when I got started. So in some worlds, I'm a late bloomer when it comes to all of this. And in a lot of worlds, I'm actually early. And I think that's really important when we think about our financial stories and the trajectories that we're on.
Yeah, so my story, I'll try to be brief. I'm a Brooklyn, New York baby. And so, I spent the first 16 years of my life in New York. I loved it there. Obviously, it's the big city. It is all that everyone, sees on TV and more. But my mom kind of worked in that part. Like, she worked in Manhattan. My dad worked in Manhattan. We lived in Brooklyn. And so what I experienced on a day-to-day basis was very different. And I didn't really come to understand that until years later when I realized what they called the crack era. And I was like, oh, I just thought that was normal, It's like, oh, everybody doesn't have this kind of experience. And I still am wrestling with that till this day as I watch and consume media and learn about my own history through the lens of documentarians. But it's important because it shaped the way that I thought about money. Unlike Kirsten, it was something that was scarce. It was something that I felt like those people, as in those people that I would see on the few occasions when I would go into the city, into Manhattan, they had money. That's what money looked like. We did not. Nobody around me had money, right? In fact, even from a standpoint of fatherhood, right? Just to give you an idea, I mean, I could count on one hand the amount of households I knew where there were 2 parents in the household. So when she grew up like that, and I didn't grow up with 2 parents in the household, my father was a part of my life, but he was not there. Right? That's a different story, And so all of these things were normal. I moved to Atlanta like millions of other New Yorkers after the Olympics, looking for a better deal on life in terms of cost of living. And my mom struggled, even more while she was here. But long story short, I learned how to work really quickly. Like, I was working in high school. I worked all my way through college. I earned 3 degrees and worked through earning all 3 of those degrees, and finally landed into a comfortable corporate job in 2008, the worst of times to do it. And it was tough, but I at that point realized that as I was thinking about the economic recession that we were in, and I was coming off of my MBA and knowing what I knew about cycles, that I had an opportunity to catch up for everything that I was behind on. So again, I started thinking about growing up, not having the means, and started thinking about what I could control, which is how much I spent, how much I earned, what I did with any of my excess money. And I really just took all of that learning from business school and took as much advantage as I could with 2008. So that's how I started learning more about money at a high level as a hobby, and then getting into real estate.
Man, I feel for you in the worst way. About 2008, that's when I started as a financial advisor. And they were telling me to go door to door, asking people to invest money with me. I'm like, the market went down 35% last year. You want me to go not door to door? So I definitely can sympathize. You both kind of alluded to how your childhood shaped your perspective on money leading up to you all's meeting. I know that you're both big believers in the fact that those early childhood experiences carry a heavy weight. So I want to know if you can recall what was your very first memory or association with money? Not necessarily like, oh, I know exactly what this does, but I recognize that it has a power.
Mine was actually with physical coins, which is funny to say because we have a 9-year-old, oh, he's almost 9-year-old son who has very little interaction with like physical money these days, like actual cash other than gifts. But my dad used to come home from work and empty out his pockets on his vanity. And with that would come, his cigarettes, his keys, anything, any random wrappers, and whatever coins were left over from the day. And he kept a box under the sink where he would put all of the coins. And this box was just like full of money. It was so heavy, I couldn't lift it. But it was the thing that made me, how kids involuntarily offer tips about their house. It was the thing that made me tell other people my dad was rich. And during the summer, he would let us roll up the coins and take them to the bank and cash them in for actual money that we could spend at the mall or wherever we were going. And so that was my first memory, was just like the smell of pennies on my fingers and rolling up and counting 50 at a time, quarters, like just counting it and exchanging it for money.
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick one, but then like a better one. So the quick one, because it's funny, is I remember the first time I found penny wrappers. And I had no idea what they were, or coin wrappers, right? I thought it was actual money because it would say like 50 cents and it was stacks of them. So I remember seeing it and looking around and hustling. And I think I stole like a pack of penny wrappers and then tried to bring it to the store. And they were like, I don't even know why you're here. Like, it was crazy. But my first real experience would have to be maybe when I was like 14 and I was working as a junior counselor at a summer camp. And this was a summer camp that I was accustomed to going to until I had finally aged out of it. And then it was like, oh, now you can come back and be a summer camp counselor, a junior counselor. And I'm pretty sure we earned like $50 under the table every week just to kind of help out and keep things in order. But that $50 gave me so much power. That was the first time I could go to Wendy's and get what I wanted. The first time I can go get a slice of pizza. And that's when I realized that I needed to start saving a little bit of that because that's what I would use to go get some Guess jeans. Like Guess jeans were a thing at the time. And, between Guess and like Cross Colors and Columbia gear, all that stuff was super cool. And I had the ability to finally go buy those things on my own. So yeah, about 12 to 14 years old is when things really started to click for me in terms of what money meant.
Okay. So you meet at work, you start dating, and you share this in the book. We're going to give a giveaway of the book, so listen to the commercial break so you can figure out how to join that drawing. But you had 2 rounds of dating. So tell me about round 1 and what led to the end of round 1.
Round 1 was traditional dating. Like, it was a lot of going out, eating out, going to bars, hanging out. And about 2 or 3 months in, we decided that we should take a trip. And at the time, we were working for a hotel company. So we had miles that we could use. We had employee rate that we could use. So taking a trip wasn't this huge financial commitment as much as it was a logistical one. So we decided, like, let's just do this. Let's just go somewhere for 10 days, like having not known each other for very long. And so we take this trip. It's incredible. The entire time that we're there, we're just deciding that, we'll split things kind of 50-50. You put your card down here, I'll put mine here. I'll put the rooms on my name, and the next time you put them on yours. It was very like 50-50. We get back from the trip, and I'm the kind of person who kind of needs a vacation after my vacation. Like, I don't do transitions very well. And so after the trip, I'm like, all right, we're back. Like, let's go out to eat. Let's go on another date. And he's like,
absolutely not. He was like, we just
like,
spent a month worth of surplus in 10 days. I'm going to the grocery store.
yeah, I didn't interpret it that way. I was like, what happened? Like, did I fart or something? Like, what happened during this vacation that has you so different now? I did not even think for a second it was financial related. And so I'm pushing and I'm pushing, I'm pushing. And finally, one day he's just like, how do you have so much money to like still be going out after what we just did? And I was like, credit cards, duh. Like, what do you mean? Like, I know I don't have money. I'm waiting on the paycheck like you, but I have a credit card. And he was like, yeah, but you just used your credit card. And I was like, yeah, and like, I just was not in the habit of paying off my credit cards every month. And I certainly wasn't in the habit of, in months where there is a surplus, you calm everything else down so that you can throw more money at it. That was foreign to me for the most part. I knew that intellectually that's what you were supposed to do, but I had not thought about the cost of not doing that. And so finally, we have a conversation about debt. He's very clear, like, tell me more about this credit card habit. And I'm just talking like I'm talking to you. Like, oh, yeah, you just swipe, swipe, swipe. And if this one runs out, I use this one. And if this one runs out, I use this one. And he's like, if I had known you had so much credit card debt, I never would have dated you. Boom. This is our very first financial conversation ever. He says this. And I'm pissed. I am very, very upset. I didn't understand what it meant at the time. I was just very embarrassed that, you know, I had just come back from this trip with somebody and this is what he would say. Like, this is the reason why he would not date me. And so that led to a breakup. Our very first financial conversation turned into a financial argument that turned into a breakup. And that is what ended round one of the dating.
So let me explain, right?
Before you explain, I gotta say, man, when I read that in the book, that's what you said, I was like, oof. I was like, yo, there has got to be a better way to phrase it. So go ahead.
But so here's the thing, right? And I always make a point, like, obviously that was incredibly harsh, right? Like, looking back, that's incredibly harsh. I should not have said what I said, the way I said it, or when I said it. So I apologize for that. I'm the one that came crawling back when I realized that I was wrong. But I do think that there's value in like going through that process and saying, where did that anger and frustration come from? And again, a lot of it comes back to how I grew up. Like, money was not something that you wasted. If you wasted money, it says something about their character. Like, that's how tight it was. And so I could not envision being with someone who did not have the same level of respect for money that I did. Secondly, as much as I liked her, I did not feel like I could afford to delay or throw away all of the plans that I had for myself. So while she was wanting to party, I was thinking, yeah, but I still want to stay on track because, going back to what we said before, there's still an opportunity to get property deeply undervalued. It's only 2012, and you may not get another chance to do this again, right? And so we had gotten this job, we had significant surplus. I felt like, we're not going to continue this barrage of dating at such a high level forever. Like, there has to be periods of time where we think a little differently. We can still enjoy ourselves, but we got to think a little differently about what we want in life. But I didn't share a lot of those things in detail with her, or the timeline, or the sense of urgency that I had. Like, I was working a plan while also trying to work this plan. And I didn't share the details of my financial plans with her at all. And so when we rebounded from the argument, got back together, that's when I pulled out, like, to answer your earlier question, like, one of the things that I did, I had spreadsheets for days. Like, I could tell you what I'd spent on my electric bill for the last 2-3 years, like, in detail. Like, I took great pride. It was data entry, it was rudimentary, but I knew it all. I had a very clear understanding of those things and how I had paid down certain debt, because I was practicing what I had just learned in graduate school. And I was using that understanding to start a wealth building journey for myself and whoever I ended up with. And so here we were at this interesting juncture where we were both earning significant amounts of money, but she wanted to spend it very differently than I wanted to spend it. I wanted to spend it in a way that accelerated my path to riches, and she wanted to go ahead and keep the party going. And we had to have that conversation and learn more about each other. Why do you feel so passionately about it? Why do you feel so passionately about it? And through those conversations, one, we learned a lot about ourselves. We learned a lot about the potential that we had as a couple. But more importantly, we realized that a lot of couples were not having these kinds of in-depth conversations at this point in our dating career. Like, we were having long-term wealth building plans 4 months in after meeting, right? Most people, even if they get married, they don't really have those conversations until they're trying to make those big financial decisions, which is usually having a kid and or buying a house. And it's not a conversation that happens before either of those things. It's like, all right, now that we're pregnant, or
Right.
now that I see something that I want to buy, put it all on the table. And so we saw that as really, really interesting. And from that moment on, we just started having as many of these kinds of conversations with people as possible. And we learned a lot in the process.
I promised you all that I was going to ask a question that I wasn't going to tell you in advance. So when I read the book, I'm married and have been married for a while, been together 20 years. So I've done we get in an argument, neither one wants to admit that they're wrong, so we're just going to avoid each other in this house for 2 or 3 days until somebody comes and says, hey, let's talk. So what I want to know is not that conversation. Kiersten, I need you to explain the conversation after that conversation. Like, how did y'all get back together? I want to know how he came and said, can we talk? And you agreed to, like, yeah, all right, we can do this again.
It's so funny because he wrote me a little sticky note, and then he offered to, we were working in the same office. So he left a little sticky note on my desk, and then we went to dinner at one of my favorite restaurants at the time, Papados. And that kind of eased me in. Like, you give me good food, I'm a lot more open to the conversation.
She'd do anything for some fried shrimp, right?
For the crab fingers, yeah.
Anything for a crab finger.
Put me in your next campaign, Papados. Which was big for him and big for me because it showed that he wasn't so extreme that he didn't understand my love for dating and just being social and being out and not stuck in the house all the time. But it also gave us a neutral place to talk about this. And to his point, there was a lot that I just hadn't put together. I didn't realize that I'm asking a former professional chef to go out and pay for food all the time. I didn't realize the burden that comes with being the male and being expected to cover the bill every single time, and how, it just doesn't, it wasn't this, I didn't see the ask the same way that he was feeling it. And we talked a lot about just kind of why the reaction was so strong. And he really pushed me on some of the assumptions that I was using about my financial plan. Like, why do you think you can always out earn it? Tell me what the future job's going to be. Where do you think you're going into an org chart? Now, this wasn't all over lunch. This continued over the next couple of days. But he really broke through in terms of where my thinking was flawed. Like, we got to the point where he was bringing out org charts and saying, okay, so you think you're going to be a VP at Coca-Cola. Let's look at how many VPs at Coca-Cola actually look like you. And we're in Atlanta, so that shouldn't be a hard thing. But it helped me realize where I was using magical thinking instead of an actual plan to get what I wanted. He never said you can't have it. He never said, like, I'm not telling you not to eat out, but you certainly need some structure around the way that you're thinking. And I was the same way with him. Like, I'm not saying we have to eat out all the time, but I do want to feel like we're having an actual courtship, like we're actually dating and not just, two homies always hanging out at the house.
Yeah, and to be clear, I wasn't trying to tell her that she shouldn't be as ambitious. I was ambitious as well, but it was really about a sense of independence and being in control and just asking us to look at the moment that we were in a little differently. I think a lot of couples, and a lot of people I'm sure listening know how overwhelmingly exciting it can be when you get the job that you think is going to change everything. You feel like, oh my gosh, like this is the beginning of the story that I thought of and dreamed of, and here I am. I am a character in the movie that you've always envisioned yourself as, especially if it's a 2-parent household. But what you don't really envision, because you don't have as many of these kinds of transparent conversations as you should with people who are older and who have been around the block, is that it does not work as a smooth 20 to 25 year of consistent earning, of both people being promoted at the same time, and you always having like the math that we do in the beginning, where you've got a ton of money left over. Everybody just naturally assumes that, oh, in 3 years I'll be at this level and you will too, and then we'll have even more. We never do the other math around how our cost of living in some cases either catches up or exceeds our earning potential, right? So we're just a little too bright-eyed and wildly optimistic when it comes to long-term earning potential. And for me, I said, if we're going to do that, we at least need to improve our odds. We need to diversify the way that we earn income and put ourselves in control, as opposed to always relying on institutions or people that we do not know to determine our value. Like that made very little sense to me, because I had no evidence to suggest that it was going to work out.
Which makes sense when you think about his immigration background. Like, his parents didn't live through that era. Mine did. And so I was passed down, the boomer logic passed down to me. And this is probably the last generation that got like the straight upward trajectory of the economy throughout their midlife and throughout their coming of age years. It was boomers. And so my parents told me, like, no, you just keep climbing. You just keep climbing the corporate ladder and the money keeps coming. It wasn't until I listened to someone, Julian's a little older than me. He's technically Gen X, or you're a cusper.
I'm a cusper.
Yeah. Gen X, millennials, certainly Gen Z, like none of us are experiencing the same straight up trajectory that boomers got to experience. This is what, our like fourth financial crisis. Like, I'm glad that he was the first person to say, like, no, that hasn't happened since the 80s and 90s, and since they were, much older and much more established in their careers, because it's the thing that got me serious about saving during the good times so that you can make it until the rebound.
We're not going to like gloss over what you all have built or the journey there, but it's obvious that you all at some point built a titan of a brand in terms of helping people with their financial literacy and achieving financial independence. So I want to take a quick break, and we are going to, after the break, start actually ask you some actual advice about how people can follow your path. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the podcast with Julian and Kiersten of Rich and Regular. And as we've done in the past with books that we really enjoy and want our audience to benefit from, we're going to do a giveaway of their book, Cashing Out, Win the Wealth Game by Walking Away. It's one that I read when it came out. I recommend it to others consistently when they're trying to reframe their relationship with their money or their spouse and or both. And we are going to do it a little bit differently. And instead of having a drawing, we're going to just do first 3 people to email with the subject line cashing out to info@newmoneynewproblems.com. Ready, set, go. Now let's get back to the episode. Welcome back from the break. We are here with Julian and Kiersten of Rich and Regular, and now we're going to start to dig into a little bit of their brand. We will, of course, link to their podcast, their YouTube channel, their book. We're going to do some giveaways of the book, but I want to start with asking you all, if you had to recommend, the 15-year career as you all describe it in the book, can you summarize what it looks like and what people should be doing at each stage of the journey?
Yeah. So to be clear, it is an oversimplification of what we want people to think about their careers alongside their financial lives, right? Because the two are connected. Most people are spending money that's earned through their job. And as we said, there's not much that we can do about it because that's just the way that this world works. But what we want people to do is to begin with the end in mind, and to believe, or to begin with an end that you are in control of in mind. I don't think there's much worse than people having a plan and then having that plan disrupted and you not really having any control over it. But it happens to a lot of people, and certainly now these days with all these layoffs. But what we're recommending people to do is to spend that first 5 years of those really good income earning years paying down as much debt as possible. And if you can, at the same time, start investing as early as possible, even if it's a little bit. You'll figure out what that proportion looks like. Everybody's financial life is going to be different, but that's what that first 5 years is all about. It's starting the sort of what's the word I'm looking for?
Foundational.
It's starting the foundation of your financial and your career together. Years 6 through 10, you're going to continue doing those things, but I think it's really important to start figuring out what your superpower is. What is the thing that truly makes you unique? And a really good indicator is going to be the thing that you've been celebrated for. It could be like, wow, you're really good at public speaking, or you're a great, you're great at spreadsheets, or you're the person that the boss or your manager always goes to for these things. That's a great indicator that, hey, these are the things that make you different. And what we're asking people to do is to take those things and try to find ways for you to earn money doing those things outside of your job, right? So it's great that your boss is celebrating those things and giving you a certificate. I want you to take that skill set and see if you can do something, even if it's just $100 here, $500 here, but like figure out what that would look like if you had to earn money doing that thing. Spend 5 years doing that while you are paying down that debt and or continuing to invest. And if you're lucky, by year 6, 7, or 8 or something like that, the debt is already paid off and you can transition the money that usually goes towards debt to now boosting up your investments or continuing to invest into now your superpower. Years 11 through 15, this is the third stretch of the 15-year career. By this point, you've been hopefully investing for 10 years. By this point, your debt is completely paid off, and now you're investing at a higher rate than you ever have. And hopefully during that year, through your experiences trying to monetize that superpower, you've now tested and understood the market and the competitive landscape. And then, by the way, this may not even be just one superpower. It could be multiple things, right? But the goal is to have slowly created an exit ramp out of what we primarily were calling corporate careers, but it could be any career that you don't particularly enjoy. Just the other day, we were talking to a fintech company, and the head of the ERG, and I love when this happens, before they pressed record, they had that real heart-to-heart conversation for us. And she starts sharing how she, like somebody that we'd interviewed in the past was it Zumba? Or
No, she does Orange Theory.
she does Orange Theory, and she loves teaching those classes. And you can just kind of tell that that's what lights her up. Like, I could just tell that's who she is. And she doesn't know this yet. I was like, that's what you're going to end up doing, right? Like, that's the thing. Whatever you're doing at your job is just what you're doing to get by. You like it, but you don't love it. Orange Theory is your thing. And what we want for a lot of people is to figure out what that thing is and figure out a way where that can be one meaningful source of income for you, because that's what you really want to do. And I think I would prefer, and I'm sure some people will disagree, but if you had, let's say, an Orange Theory career plus your podcast plus whatever it is, you're just spending your days, your nights, and your weekends controlling your calendar, doing the things that you love, and it's earning the same, if not more money as you were doing one job that you hate, I feel like that is a much better quality of life that a lot of people would want. And so that's really what the 15-year career was about. Because the fact of the matter is, and this is still true now, when we were writing the book, it was early when we started to have these conversations with people. Most people hate their jobs. They just hate their jobs. They don't want to admit it. But whenever we hang out, that's the only thing they talk about. And they try to bond with you on your shared hatred of your job. And we just got tired of that. It was like, I just want to meet you outside of your dislike of this experience that you feel trapped in. And so we got frustrated with that and said, let's create something, a bit of a blueprint or framework, if you will, that people can use to get themselves out of that cycle of being drained and undervalued and always putting other people in control of your earning potential.
You share that a lot of people's first excuse for not being able to build wealth is, number one, just not believing that they can, but also feeling like they don't have the money to do it. I think you all do a phenomenal job of like sharing economical ways to save money, especially like when it comes to cooking. What are some easy wins that you feel people can use to just like build a little more cash flow so that they can put it towards debt elimination or investing?
I think the easiest places you can look at are your taste preferences and your convenience tax, is what I call it. It's all of the places that you go to when you are tired or when you feel like you need a little treat, a little reward. We all have these things, and it's not to say that you don't deserve to treat yourself occasionally, but those are the places where you can look. And I think it really requires a level of creativity to figure out how you can still find pleasure in things without paying such a premium for them. If you like nice clothes, okay, well, maybe now you start shopping consigned, or maybe you do a clothes swap with your friends, or maybe you join a buy nothing group, or you just challenge yourself and go on a no spend month or no spend Wednesdays. There's lots of little ways that you can shave off some of the spending that you do probably automatically at this point and figure out different ways to get the same thing. I think when people have been locked into their habits for long periods of time, you forget how much the world has changed around you. My mom has some very strong opinions about discount stores, whether we're talking about Aldi, TJ Maxx. She always feels like they are just like disorganized, too crazy, like they don't have what I need. If I go in there, they're not going to have the thing. But she ain't been in one in a decade plus. And I'm like, Mom, they're completely different. Like they have gotten tons of investment. Lots of people shop there. First of all, they receive all of the excess from your favorite stores. And so if it didn't sell there, it's there now. You can get all the brands that you buy at, Sephora or wherever you shop, Target, at TJ Maxx now. And so one of the things I would challenge people is if you haven't been to an Aldi or to a Costco, for example, even the stereotypes that come with Costco and other like warehouse clubs that everything is just huge. That's not true anymore. Like sometimes it's just multiple smaller packages that you were going to buy anyway, except now you get a discount if you buy them all at once.
But even if it is huge, there are ways to still stretch it so that you are spending less per unit on whatever those things are than you would if you were buying them at your store of choice.
Right.
That's a nice way of saying like people just need to get over themselves. Like that's where I'm at this point, because as someone who has been doing this work for a really long time, and again, just one of the beauties of not being an advisor, I'm not bound. I don't give those kinds of advice. I'm nobody's pastor. I'm none of that stuff. Right. I'm just me living my life, and so I can afford to be a little ruder than most people who there's a bit of a gentleman's agreement a little bit. Brent's not going to say certain things, but I can. He'll bring me in and say, people, we got to get over ourselves.
We really do, guys.
As Americans,
in 2026,
we are wildly entitled people, and we have designed lives and lifestyles mostly based on luck and credit and convenience. And you hear people say things like, I could give you a list of 100 things that you could do to save $20 here, from changing LED light bulbs to deciding that you're going to learn how to do your own hair. I'm at a point now where I would rather you tell me that you're going to spend 6 months learning how to cook than you're going to go back to school to be out of the workforce, certainly if you're going to pay for a higher education just to get a fancy degree and then come out and hope to get a job that doesn't even exist anymore. Like, this is just the reality that we're experiencing these days, right? But if you learn how to cook, that is a skill set that will save you money immediately, and it's something that will improve your health. It is something that will improve the efficiency of your home, and it lives with you forever. It's not, a hack that you won't be able to use at other parts of your life. But like, this is where I'm at, like I went to a Family General the other day for the first time ever.
Family Dollar.
Family General. This is how, I'm being honest. I don't know. I don't even know what it, I get them all confused.
There's a Dollar General and then there's a Family Dollar.
I went to the family one, the orange and black one.
See, now
I just wanted some socks. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't need 10 socks from Costco. I just needed, but I was pleasantly surprised, and it's not to say that I'm going to start shopping there more often, but my number one advice for somebody who's been laid off, but you still going to Publix, like, get over yourself. You know what I mean? Take your bleep to the dollar store and you can get the same stuff. The same stuff is there, dude. But we are choosing to
pay more.
I stopped by a Publix the other day.
Here we go.
we came home from dinner. We were celebrating something. Came home from dinner with my son, and I wanted a different ice cream because you only have a handful of options at Aldi. And I went into Publix. They got a nice Publix, right, not too far from where we are. and the lights started coming on
They
while
were
I was.
motion detected.
Well, I felt like it was so bright and friendly in there, and I was like, "Wow, this is so nice." It's a completely different experience. A whole aisle
Yeah.
of ice cream, all flavors, all different options, and I just was like, "Wow." I also understand why it's so hard for people to give this up, because I remember when I aspired to shop at Publix or aspired to shop at Whole Foods, but I also now completely appreciate Aldi for what it is. Because at the end of the day, I know I have a very advanced palate. I used to cook professionally, so I'm different than most people. But most people can't tell the difference, right? But we are just choosing to say that we prefer these things because it's a reflection of who we are, to say that we live in this area, that we send our kids to these schools, that we drive these kinds of cars, that we shop at these kinds of places. And those things add thousands of dollars to our expenses every single year. And that's money that could be going towards paying down debt or expediting in retirement.
Or doing the things that you actually value. Like if you truly do not value one brand of vanilla ice cream versus the other, you don't need a whole aisle. And even if you do truly value one brand of vanilla ice cream over the other, it doesn't mean that you have to have access to it all the time. You can have it as a treat so that you continue to value it and you understand why. And all of the money that you're saving on ice cream can be used towards vacations, which are also more expensive, towards trips and experiences that are also more expensive. Everything is more expensive. And so it's not a matter of like downgrading something and doing nothing. It's creating room and margin in your budget so that you can still afford to do the things that you want to do without sacrificing everything.
You are in a position that I wouldn't say that I envy, in that you are married and you have a business together, so you work together every day. That wouldn't work in my household.
It don't work in ours sometimes.
Yes. So I think you all give some phenomenal recommendations in the book. You talk about conflict dance, which in transparency is something that I'm familiar with through marital counseling and trying to have a better idea of like how to argue in a healthy way. What I would ask is, there are times when I think even the best of us can still venture into our conflict dance. So how do you all handle it now when you're kind of straying from your principles when it comes to how you discuss money and business together and you want to get back to center?
Ooh, it's interesting because it's a moving target on both sides. Like the center that you try to get back with is always shifting. And that's probably been the most surprising thing since we've been on this journey, or since we've been on this other side, is that even without the pressures of a job or a career change, your identity is still turning over. Like you are still in this process of discovery and you're still learning things about yourself. And that shifts the household. It shifts what the center is for each of us. And so a lot of that goes back to what Julian said, is we take a long point of view. Like when you take on the identity of an investor, you also start to look at things from a long-term point of view. And we recognize that some of these shifts just take a minute. You don't try to rush it. Obviously, you try to ease the tension enough so y'all not walking by each other, it's silent treatment. But he now has an awareness of when I'm working through something, and I have one where he's working through something. And then you just give them the space that they need, the time, the grace. You give them the support that they need to develop as an individual. And then when they're ready to talk about it, when you're ready to kind of meet in the middle and say, okay, this is who I am now. This is what I prioritize now. This is what I'm going to start doing now. If Julian decides like, oh, I'm going to start cooking in bulk now, it's like, all right, well, we need a freezer. We need to change the way that we shop and store foods. That's just a very surface example, but it's a very real one. There are all kinds of routines and habits and behaviors that change as we continue to grow older together. And we are still learning how to make room for those and to adjust the household, because you've got this third object, which is our son. I don't mean to call him an object, but he's doing the same thing at the same time. There are things and needs that he now has. So I think the key is just to have enough room in your life to be able to accommodate that. When you are so bogged down with work or money stress, when things like that, requests like that, emotional lifts come in from your family, you don't really have room for it, and you kind of blame them for it. And in our situation, we welcome it. It's like, oh, okay, there's something happening. There's a growth happening. Let's all readjust to make sure that happens in a clean way. It's like it's like a plant. That's a bad example. But
I
a
thought it was
farmer or
profound.
someone who collects plants may understand the metaphor a little more. You just have more room to adjust for it.
But that ties back into what I just said in response to a different question, because I don't know exactly what question we were asked before, but I remember Kirsten and I having that conversation about like what rich meant. Like, how do you really know that you're rich? Because that means different things to different people. But I do remember that being a bit of a milestone. It was like the point where you start to welcome risk, right? Like there was a point in your life where risk is like the boogeyman. It is a monster. It is a thing that will take everything that you have, love, and have ever worked for away. And as a result, you want to be really, really mindful of that thing or just avoid it entirely. But you've reached a certain point where you've done enough things. You've been around the block a couple of times. You have enough of a cushion where you don't look at things the same way. Like the things that you maybe thought were risky, or not risky, but like scary, are not as scary anymore. It's more interesting. It's more intriguing, right? And I think
And
the
that
same
includes
thing.
conflict.
That's what I mean. The same thing happens with your relationship. It's like, oh wow, it says you've been married for a long time. It's like, oh, I found something that I didn't know that you were mad about. Tell me more. I thought I knew everything. Like I didn't know you
Well, I
really
didn't
hate
used to
that.
be mad about it.
All
Now
right?
I am.
I was like, oh, so you're changing. I've read about this.
My dad describes it. I'll tell a less crude version of how he describes it. So my dad talks about marriage, and he says, the thing about marriage is he thinks that every person changes 3 major times in their life. And when you put, two people in a household, that means that there's 6 major changes going on, and they don't occur at the same times, right? So he's like, I'm married to like my 3rd wife, right? It's the same person, but it's like I have to learn 3 different people, and she has to learn 3 different people.
Yes.
And it's just like you don't get an announcement, right? It's like it happens in the middle of the process. Where you're like, oh wait, that joke was funny to you last month.
That was last month.
Yeah. Now I don't want to hear it anymore. That's disrespectful. Like what?
Exactly. Well, you all have been so gracious with your time. I'm bleeding over what I promised you. So I got some quick hitting questions for you.
Cool.
So just first thing that jumps out at you, and each of you, I need your response. So we'll start with the negative. Along this journey, what has been the most unpleasant surprise you weren't expecting about the journey to financial independence?
Our family's reactions to some of our choices.
Just boredom.
You've been bored?
I've been bored a good bit of times. There are times where, you tell yourself, I probably should have went to that thing. I probably should have went.
All right. So let's go with the positive now. There's been something you cast this vision for yourself, but this part of it was even better than you expected. What's that thing?
Ooh. What's yours?
Meeting people that we never thought we would be cool with, right? Like we've met, like prior to this experience, we've met, people that, respectfully, I would have typecast and likely not wanted to hang out with. But now they're some of our favorite people. And so that experience has been great. And it's also just opened up the world to us in a way that was not available to us, and certainly would not have been available to us if we had just stayed as traditionally employed people. Like your community would have been this small, but because of the internet and our travels and our business, we've been able to meet people and have like some just amazing experiences, at all levels, over the last 8 years. So for me, that's what's been the most amazing part.
That's a good one. I would say how easily I feel things. And I mean that in the sense that like when you're no longer numbing yourself, either intentionally or unintentionally, there really is so much surprise and delight in the world. And I think some of that is intentional just based on the way that we manage our money. Like I said, I know there are things that I really, really like, but I don't let myself have access to them all the time for practical reasons. But when I do get access to like Bluebell ice cream or a really nice hotel lobby or a great spa, it's just like, wow, like it feels like the very first time. And I love that. It just makes the world not get old to me.
The towels feel just that much
Yeah,
more
it's like these are some
comfortable.
nice towels. And I can genuinely compliment people on the things that they have that I know that they put time into, because it's like I have noticed it is really nice. It does smell good here. Your hair is different. And I think that's just such a cool superpower to move through the world with. And I think it's something that people need more of in times like this.
Okay. Last set of questions, positive and negative. There's something we all have about our personality, especially when it comes to money, that if not kept in check, it works against us financially. What is that for each of you?
Mine is gift giving. I'm a very generous person. I like to give gifts. And if I do not keep it in check, I will gift you like I'm Oprah when I am not.
I would say, when that 1990s Brooklyn comes out of me, man, and I feel like somebody's trying to, like, when somebody's trying to just offer their services, but if my hustle radar goes off, like I feel like you're trying to hustle me.
Yeah, he's very skeptical.
Yeah.
That needs to be kept in check.
Yeah.
It's like, Julian, this is a Girl Scout. She just wants some cookies.
Nah.
Why she come up like this?
She ran up on me, man.
It's a fundraiser.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, let's flip it on its head then. That's the last question for each of you. We also all have, Julian, you called it your superpower, right? This is the thing when deployed, it gives you that extra oomph financially that other people don't have. What is that for each of you?
For me, it's focus. I know I definitely have the ability. Like there are more things that I have accomplished that have been on my list of focuses than there are things that I haven't. And I feel like there's not much I can't do. And what that's done for me is whenever I hear people say you can't do these things or the success rate, it was like I've got a long list of things that people said could not be done or were like practically impossible, and I've kind of done it. And in most cases when I've done it, I've felt like, all right, that wasn't that bad. And so for me, like I just know that if I put it on my focus list, it's really just a matter of time.
That's a good one. I think for me, I don't know if this counts. You can tell me. I think for me, it's sales and selling. I think that is the one positive thing. Like if whether it's selling our skills, selling a product, selling a relationship, like if there's something that we need, I'm going to go find a buyer pretty quickly.
Well, as a subscriber to your podcast, YouTube channel, reader of your blog, and purchaser of your book, I would say it counts.
Make sure you follow me on Facebook Marketplace. I'll sell anything.
Exactly. Before we leave, or as we leave, anything you want, we'll put everything in the show notes, but anything in particular that you want to tell our readers about?
Go ahead. I was just going to say Eat Better, Julian's YouTube series. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to legitimately help people cook better and eat better because I think it is the last frontier of savings and improving quality of life and improving health outcomes. And it is wild to me, specifically to the community that we're talking to. I'm talking to Black people and people of color, how little progress we have made in terms of being able to enjoy all this world has to offer in terms of food. We've boxed ourselves into a really, really tiny space. And it's not only leading to poor health outcomes, it is like the part of the budget that a lot of people feel like they can't do anything about. Mm-hmm. And so I really just want to have more people revisit that part of their lives, go back into the kitchen, find greater confidence in eating new foods, having greater levels of control, and using it as a way to just improve their quality of life before they don't, before it's not an option for them anymore. So yeah, we have a series called Eat Better. It's little bits of me just showing people, how to cook certain things, what to look for, how to think about cooking, how to think about food, how to think about organizing your pantry or your kitchen or any of those things. So I'm trying to keep it as homey as possible because I think there's a lot of like super fast, high tech cooking stuff out there right now that's a little intimidating. I want home cooking, simple home cooking that tastes good, that is affordable, and that people can be proud of. So yeah, that's what we're doing over on YouTube and on social media.
Well, I thank you all for sharing your expertise Thank you for your time, your grace, your courtesy, and thank you for being a guest on the New Money, New Problems podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, man.
Let's get some money.
From New Money, New Problems, this was the New Money, New Problems podcast, a show for successful professionals searching for the tools they need to navigate financial opportunities and obstacles they've never seen.